This is Israel, land of the Bible, a small nation in size, but many times larger in historic importance. It's called the Holy Land because, according to the Bible, God chose it. Chosen because it connects the peoples of Africa, Asia, and Europe. Chosen as the place where God would uniquely reveal himself to the world. This divine stage divides into 3 geographical regions: Galilee in the north, the central highlands of Samaria, and the dry region of Judea in the south. Judea holds the capital, Jerusalem, a city that is pulsed with spiritual significance from its very beginning over 4,000 years ago. Day of Discovery's Mart D. Hahn and Jimmy Dion have returned to this historic city to begin a road tour of Western Judea.
Good morning, and welcome to another day in the city of Jerusalem, the old city of Jerusalem. We're standing here before the Jaffa Gate, one of 7 gates in the walled city, the old city of Jerusalem. A very historic gate in a very historic city.
And for a sense of perspective, these walls and gates that we're looking at were being built at about the time that America was discovered. That gives you a sense of the history, the layers of history that we see all around us here in Jerusalem. You know what? Let's go up. I want a better perspective.
I know you were going to say that. This Jaffa Gate in 1917 was the entrance made by General Allenby, the commanding officer of the British Army, as they have defeated the Turkish Ottoman Empire in the Jezreel Valley. They came here for the surrender. It's a very historic day, December the 9th, 1917, concluding a conflict right here in the old city of Jerusalem.
You coming, Jim?
I'm coming.
All right.
Good thing about these steps, rails on both sides so I can pull my way up. This is not it yet.
All right, some more?
Guess we're going there.
All right.
No more steps up. We're at the top of the wall that's around the old city of Jerusalem, just above the Jaffa Gate. In fact, what's so interesting about this particular wall is that there's a way to walk around the entire old city.
I think we ought to do it, Jim.
Martion, I'm not sure.
It's interesting. You can see the new city from here, all the new building that's happening around. And look at, how about this for an angle on the Jaffa Gate, Jim? You know, Jim, when you realize we're standing on top of a fortress,
yes,
an ancient fortress on top of high ground, you realize that security has always been an issue for the people of Israel. That's something we want to talk about today.
We're going to make a journey through Judea, down towards the Mediterranean coast. We'll come from the high grounds of Jerusalem, going through the foothills of Judea, on across 3 valleys that have a great biblical historic significance. In fact, it's into the land that the Bible talks about, the land of the Philistines, where the conflict between the Israelites and the Philistines would take place. Then over to Ashkelon on the Mediterranean coast, and around back here into Jerusalem.
There are few cities in the world like Jerusalem. Here a traveler almost immediately has a sense of time. The core old city with its maze of ancient streets is surrounded by walls which have been important to this city's story from the time of its capture by Israel's King David 3,000 years ago. This city in Judea, according to the Bible, is the city of God, a city chosen to be the lighthouse of God's love for all the people of the world.
And to his son I will give one tribe, Judah, that my servant David may always have a lamp before me in Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen for myself, to put my name there. 1 Kings chapter 11.
These walls were erected some 1,500 years after the destruction of Jerusalem and her temple in 70 AD by the Romans. But they give us a good sense of what the city's fortifications may have looked like in the time of Jesus. Jerusalem's walls have been destroyed about 18 times. And over the years, these walls have been used to illustrate the story of the Bible. The story of the God who offered to protect and to provide for his own people who surrender their lives to him. To begin our tour of the western and southwestern region of what was ancient Judea, we take a modern highway that roughly follows the path of roads and trails that have existed here since before the time of Abraham. These paths, first marked out by the feet of sheep and goats, eventually became caravan roads, and all too often, military routes. A half-century ago, this valley pass was significant in Israel's battle for access to Jerusalem, just after it was made a state by the United Nations in 1948.
Looks like they left it right where it was taken.
Remains of a vehicle, memorial to those who would have lost their lives. In fact, the date on the marker there says February the 29th, 1948. It's the time of approaching the War of Independence. Jerusalem was under siege. They needed supplies, medical supplies, foodstuffs, and even water. And so they got volunteers in Tel Aviv to take their vehicles, and then they double-plated them. Steel armor around the original doors of the vehicle. They would make their way up the road from Tel Aviv on up to Jerusalem. And in fact, this vehicle is now seated here on an original piece of the roadbed that would have led up to Jerusalem. Seemed to be well protected inside there.
Yeah. You know, this armored plated vehicle is a fairly recent reminder of the conflict that has marked human history. In fact, today we're talking about the great unfolding drama of the Bible. And from the beginning, from the time that humanity wandered off into the bushes of disobedience, there have been enemies. People have been fighting for limited resources. And here in the land of Israel, people have been in conflict over the land.
According to the Bible, God intentionally placed his people here in this land in order to test them, to see if they would trust him in spite of enemies and in spite of a fragile agricultural cycle. The land of Judah is a land of testing, a land of choices, and a land of physical challenges. This region took the name of one of the 12 tribes of Israel called Judah. In New Testament times, Judah came to be called Judea. Archaeologist Dr. Paul Wright of Jerusalem University College describes some of the distinct geographical features of this western region of Judea that played an important part in the unfolding story of the Bible.
The high hill country of Judah is connected to the coast by this lowland area. Fortunately, through this lowland this lowland area, the Shvela, there are some east-west valleys that carry traffic, carry natural routes. Of these valleys, 4 of them are most significant biblically. The northernmost, the Ajalon Valley, carries the main highway between Jerusalem and the coast. Gezer is the main city in it. Today, the main highway between the two, between Jerusalem and the coast, to Tel Aviv, to the airport, Ben Gurion Airport, goes through the Ajalon Valley. Any visitor to Jerusalem, to Israel, sees that valley as they go, nice and wide and fertile. South of that, the Sorek Valley, it does not have good connection to Jerusalem. It does have good connection to the coast. At the outer end, Ekron, a Philistine city. At the inner end, we meet it with a fellow named Samson, whose home is on a hill just above the flat of the Sorek Valley, trying to take that valley for his tribe, the Danites. Judah, next door, would not mind it if Samson was able to contain the Philistines, keep them out. South of that, the Elah Valley. This one does have good connection, both between the coast and Jerusalem. On the coast side, Gath. There's a fellow named Goliath who lives in Gath. He thinks this is his valley. On the upper end, you have a connection to Jerusalem and one to Hebron. On the way from the Elah Valley to Jerusalem, you have a town called Bethlehem. David thinks this is his valley, as does King Saul. In the battle between Goliath and Saul, it actually ends up between Goliath and David. At the upper end, the Judean end of this valley is won over control of the valley and access for Jerusalem to the coast and vice versa. One population is trying to contain the other. Skip a valley, we can go down to the Lakish Valley. This one shows up toward the end of the kingdom of Judah.
To showcase the history of warfare in this region, the modern nation of Israel has built a museum of armored vehicles on the main road from Jerusalem to Joppa. It's one of many paradoxes here. The residents of this land continue to greet one another with shalom, with peace, and yet constantly question the best way to obtain peace and security. And all too often the common answer is a bigger and better military. Israel's ancient prophets, however, often rebuked this appeal to military strength without dependence upon God.
Yet I will have mercy on the house of Judah, will save them by the Lord their God, and will not save them by bow, nor by sword or battle, by horses or horsemen. Hosea chapter 1.
Hey, Jim?
Yes.
Yep. Why don't you go up and show everybody the view? I'm just going to catch a couple pictures here,
You mean
okay?
climb the steps?
You bet, my friend.
Listen, I can handle the camera. You
Just show it. It's a nice view up there.
more steps?
Come on.
What?
You can do it, Jim. I know you can do it. I believe
More
in you.
steps on this program than there's ever been. You sure, Mart?
Just go on.
We're at Latroon. This is a national museum for the armored division of the Israeli Defense Force, the ones who use the tanks. Quite a memorial to those who have served in all the wars of the state of Israel. But below us is the valley of Ajalon. It has quite a history as well, militarily, for the Israelites. Joshua and the children of Israel had crossed the Jordan River, captured Jericho, taken Ai, and now they're here in a battle in the Ajalon Valley. The 5 kings of city-states came to try to defeat the Israelites. It was at that time that Joshua commanded the sun to stand still over Gibeon, which is back towards Jerusalem, the high country. And then over the valley of Ajalon, he commanded the moon to stand still. The Bible records, the Old Testament writers tells us this is the first time that God listened to a man and stopped the sun over Gibeon and the moon right here over the valley of Ajalon, one of the great battles for the children of Israel.
On the day the Lord gave the Amorites over to Israel, Joshua said to the Lord in the presence of Israel, O sun, stand still over Gibeon, O moon, over the valley of Ajalon. So the sun stood still, and the moon stopped, till the nation avenged itself on its enemies. Joshua chapter 10.
Joshua's victory, according to the Bible, was really God's victory. And the enemy knew that they were not just fighting the army of Israel, but the God of Israel. Modern roads make it easy to pass from one valley to the next, but in Bible times, the ridges were natural barriers that made each valley a separate stage for different dramas. Jimmy and I drove from the Ajalon Valley southward into the Sorek Valley. The Sorek Valley was the home of the Philistine beauty Delilah, who captured the heart of Samson.
It happened that Samson loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. And the lords of the Philistines came up to her and said to her, Entice him, and find out where his great strength lies, and by what means we may overpower him, that we may bind him to afflict him. Judges chapter 16.
Along the way, we stopped to wander over the rocky ruins of the Old Testament site of Beth Shemesh. Jimmy and I found it easy to grasp the geographical setting and spiritual significance of a biblical event that happened right here. The Philistines on the coastal plain had captured the Ark of the Covenant, the most sacred object of the Jewish people, one that represented God's very presence with his people. Then, after God inflicted the Philistines with disease and judgment, they put the ark on a cart. The cows pulling the cart wandered unguided up the valley floor here to the town of Beth Shemesh, where they stopped beside a large rock.
The Philistines said, "And watch, if the cart goes up the road to its own territory, to Beth Shemesh, then God has done us this great evil. But if not, then we shall know that it is not his hand that struck us." Then the cows headed straight for the road to Beth Shemesh, and went along the highway, lowing as they went, and did not turn aside to the right hand or the left. 1 Samuel chapter 6.
Even though the Philistines saw the power of the hand of the God of Judah, they never turned to worship him. We then drove up and over the southern ridge onto the stage where another of the Bible's most famous battles took place, the clash of David and Goliath. We stopped near the ruins of the Philistine stronghold, Azekah.
I'm standing here on the slopes of the Old Testament town Azekah. Below me is the Valley of Elah, and across the valley, on the tree-covered hill there, that would be Soko. In the times of King Saul, he was fighting the Philistines in this location. His army had encamped somewhere on the slopes and the foothills just above the valley. Across the way on Soko was the Philistines led by Goliath. David was sent to this valley by his father Jesse, bringing supplies to his brothers who were fighting with the army of King Saul. When he arrived, he found out that there'd been a standoff for some 40 days, the Philistines challenging King Saul's army. David then volunteered to go out and fight the leader of the Philistines, the giant Goliath. He was offered the armor, the helmet, and even the sword of King Saul, which he rejected. He took a little slingshot, picked up several stones, and went to the bed of the valley to meet the giant Goliath. And there...
Hey, Jim.
Yes.
I found 5 smooth stones.
Down there?
Down here.
That's great.
And
that's a slingshot, right?
I got a slingshot.
Just like David?
Just like David. Jim, you wouldn't believe how big you look up there.
Wait a minute, Mark, the other way! What did you find? Was that
I get 3 shots.
a pine cone or something?
I get 3 shots.
You missed. I'm a pretty large target
You
up here.
wouldn't believe how big you look from up there, I'll tell you.
Like Goliath?
Like Goliath.
The setting, that's for sure.
No, Jimmy was never in danger. With my poor aim and the cypress cones I was using as ammunition, he was safe. But David, he was far more skilled with the sling, and yet didn't trust in his own skill. David's confidence was in his God.
David said, "The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." 1 Samuel chapter 17.
Jimmy and I made our way down to the floor of the Elah Valley, where David had faced Goliath. As we walked along the bed of the creek, which now runs only during the rainy season, I thought more about David's confidence in God.
Then David said to Goliath, "You come to me with a sword, with a spear, and with a javelin. But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand. Then all this assembly shall know that the Lord does not save with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands." 1 Samuel chapter 17.
The battle is the Lord's. Years later, that truth would be tested in another valley, the Lachish Valley. Located there was the strategic Judean stronghold of a city by the same name, Lachish.
In the 14th year of King Hezekiah's reign, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, attacked all the fortified cities of Judah and captured them. Then the king of Assyria sent his field commander with a large army from Lachish to King Hezekiah at Jerusalem. Isaiah chapter 36.
This ancient relief records the actual battle for Lachish, a brutal depiction of ancient warfare. Sennacherib, king of Assyria, conquered the city in 701 BC and displayed the victory on his palace walls in Nineveh. It's a reminder of what could be lost when Israel chose to turn her back on God, her protector and provider. Heading west toward the Mediterranean, we passed Ashkelon, one of 5 Philistine cities of the coastal plain. These shores have marked times of testing and times of trust. And eventually, according to the Bible, the light of God's chosen people simply disappeared for hundreds of years. Some would say that in this land's darkest hour, however, the Messiah of Judah, the Lion of Judah, the Christ, came to the rescue, offering new hope not only for the land of Judah, but for the people of the whole world.
400 years before Jesus' birth, the prophet Micah wrote, "But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of you shall come forth to me the one to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth are from of old, from everlasting." Micah chapter 5.
Hey friend, at the end of the day, even I like these steps better.
They're going down. Yes, these are steps in the ancient port city of Joppa. The name of this city in Old Testament times, Jaffa in New Testament and modern times. It's right here in the coastal plains on the shores of the Mediterranean Sea. The Old Testament talks about Jonah coming here on his journey, going the opposite direction from where God told him to go. The New Testament writers talk about Peter coming here. He raised Dorcas from the dead, spent some time with Simon the tanner, and then was requested to journey up the coast to Caesarea, where he was able to convert the first Gentile to Christianity.
That's the big story. That's what Jonah was all about. That's what Peter was all about. And that's what the New Testament is all about when it talks about God himself coming to this land in the person of his Messiah, who died for his enemies to make them his friends, and who now extends to all of us that same opportunity.
This good news Jesus told his disciples to take to the world. He said, "You shall receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you. You shall be my witnesses both in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria, and even to the remotest parts of the earth." It seems fitting that we end our tour of Judea in Joppa along the shores of the Mediterranean. From here, the gospel of Christ spread rapidly by peaceful and unarmed followers of Christ, a demonstration that it is not military might that protects and empowers us. It is God's Spirit, a truth that the nation of Israel has down through the ages, since the time of her prophets, struggled to understand.
All right, stand back.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
Cut!